Lara Downes, welcome back to WRTI.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Florence Price's Piano Concerto in One Movement, which is a really wonderful piece, and it's a super dynamic piece. I'd love to start with the one movement because it's actually three, right?
Yes.
Do we know what that's about?
We have no idea. Who knows? Maybe she would have erased it someday, right? No, it's misleading, and it always takes some explanation because the end of the first movement sounds very much like an ending of a piece.
What is your history with this piece? When did you discover it?
My history with the piece is part of my longer history with Florence Price, which starts almost 20 years ago with, whatever music of hers was available, which was hardly anything.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, there was that moment in 2009 when all the manuscripts were discovered, but actually not that much happened with them. They got archived, but there's still, her time hadn't quite come. I was able to start playing more of the piano music around 2016, thanks to a friend, a colleague who's a musicologist named Dr. Michael Cooper, who actually went down to the University of Arkansas, the library there where all of the manuscripts had been housed, and just started going through the boxes and really found so much piano music. The concerto I played for the first time in 2018 in Boston, and at that point, we were working with a score that had been kind of reconstructed from a two-piano manuscript. Then the original parts turned up a year or two after that. So every time I've played the piece, it's been a process of finding mistakes, making adjustments. I think we finally have ironed everything out, but it feels very much part of me.
As I listen to recordings of this piece and kind of put on jazz ears, I can hear her in dialogue with this kind of Harlem Renaissance, like all of the things that are happening among African-American composers of that moment. As you are engaging with this music and performing it, what kinds of flashes of that history do you get, thinking about her in context?
Yeah, I love it that you brought this up. And it's so complicated and it's so nuanced. But she was writing this piece in 1933, since it was premiered the next year. 1933 is the year that Nina Simone was born. And then Nina Simone has this dream-deferred thing about classical music and even, the Curtis Institute here in Philadelphia. Right. But she was actually born into a world where Black composers are writing this music, and I don't know if she even knew that, right? Because the world was both smaller and bigger then. So her work wasn't overlooked. It had its home, it had its place, and it was very impactful. And then she's trying to stretch outside of that, and she's writing letters to the Boston Symphony, and that's where she's facing rejection, or she's being overlooked, she's not being welcomed. But I think that in her own time, the reality was one of so much activity and blossoming and, collaboration. And then it's funny because I think what we've come back to now, almost a century later, is that embrace of like the total American sound. That's how people are writing now. And maybe that's also part of why her music is striking such a chord and feeling so familiar.
Yeah, what is your favorite part of this three-movement concerto? Like, what is the part that really speaks to you?
It's just, I really think that it is the journey itself that speaks to me. Because from the way it starts, you would have no idea where it's going, right? So I love that moment when the first movement is over and everybody claps or doesn't clap, because you've asked them, but it feels like that feels complete. We just did that thing, that Brahmsian, 19th century thing. And then we slip into that second movement that is so, you're right, it's so tender. And it just feels like, we're playing chamber music on stage and you forget where you are. And then it's just so, there's always, whenever we go into the third movement, there's this like grin between me and a conductor because it's like, they don't know what's coming. Yeah. It's so complete. It's such a complete portrait of her.
Yeah. Yeah. And that third movement is like inspired. It's sort of a juba dance. It really feels like this vibrant expression of Black American folk music, but fully orchestral at the same time. And there's lots of polyrhythmic examples in classical orchestration, but this, I feel like there's a little bit of grease on it.
That's funny. Yeah. That's funny. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way, but sure, yes. Here's what I say about the Florence Price Concerto and also Rhapsody in Blue. Like, all you can do as a composer is digest what the world around you is, giving to you. And whether it's intentional or not, that is like the sound of your time, and it's going to come through in your music unless like you try not to let it. But I think that she certainly was. Also, here we are 100 years later. So things that would have been quite innovative and new and unexpected at the time, we're so used to this sound world by now.
Yeah. Is there any way that I can have you play that part?
I'm gonna play it slowly so we can illustrate what you're talking about. All of that goes on for quite a while. But that whole section starts like this. It is audacious rhythmically. It's also like very Rachmaninoff.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Orchestra's recordings of Price's symphonies, they've been really impactful,
yes.
right?
Yes.
And the impact sort of flows both ways because it elevates her, but it also kind of, I think it's become a calling card for the institution.
Mm-hmm.
The orchestra really kind of planted a flag there and said like this is our music.
Yes.
And
this is great music, and that's why we're playing it. I went ahead and started a record label called Rising Sun Music in, I think, 2019, because I was trying to do advocacy for music that nobody could hear, right? So I decided, well, fine, if you're not ready to do that, then I need to let you hear it, because you can talk all you want about this wonderful composer named Florence Price or Margaret Bonds or any of these other composers that I'm so invested in, but without hearing the music, it's not going to happen. I think what this orchestra has done is just infinitely important.
And how have you, so as you said, you first performed this piece, I think in 2018, that's what you said. Do you think that you could track a difference in the reception to this particular piece? Like, has the audience experience of it changed?
I think that the response, the instinctive response, has always been fairly electric. It's just an electric piece of music. Mm-hmm. I think that the number of people in any given concert hall who already have some familiarity with this composer has radically changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I try to always assess that. I'm always trying to find a moment of dialogue with an audience to find out, is this your first time hearing this music, or have you? So that has been a dramatic shift. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time and all of your insights.
Thank you for this conversation.
Yeah,
it's really a
real pleasure.
Thanks.